All right, let's move to the story now. Tributes are being paid to a giant of choral music, Professor Mzilikazi Khumalo. The veteran composer and scholar of African languages has passed away at the age of 89. He died yesterday after a long illness. And to talk more about his legacy, I'm joined by Bongani Tembe, the CEO and artistic director of both the Johannesburg and KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestras. Also joined on the telephone by Professor Otty Nxumalo, author, academic and poet. Gents, thank you very much for your time, particularly at a difficult time. Bongani Tembe, I'll start with you. How would you describe the impact that Professor Khumalo had on choral music, on African opera, and what he leaves us?
Good evening, Sally, and the viewers. Professor Khumalo was really a giant of choral music. One of the best composers and impactful composers that South Africa and Africa has produced. And his career spanned something like 50 years, and so he made an indelible mark in our music landscape.
And Professor Nxumalo, I'll bring you in on the phone now. I know that you've worked with him a lot. I wonder if you can talk to us about the specific contribution to the furthering of AmaZulu culture, language and heritage, particularly being involved in that first AmaZulu opera, which of course was shown to the world.
Yes, thank you. I have a lot of difficulty hearing you, but I hope you can hear me well. I know that you want me to talk about Professor Khumalo, Mzilikazi Khumalo's work. If you can hear me, I'll continue, but you were very soft. I knew Professor Khumalo for over 50 years, and consequently we come from almost the same area. He was born at Ngwelu, which is north of KZN, near Vryheid, at Ngwelu. Yeah, he was a son of a minister of the Salvation Army. And you know that the Salvation Army Church plays music. They have a band whenever they get together, and they used to tease him that he had no choice but to learn music and to fall in love with it. He was a composer, a conductor, and a linguist, and fortunately he had also majored in his first degree in Zulu and English, so he was versatile. But he really fell in love with African history and African culture.
And I hope you can still hear us, Professor Nxumalo, and I'm sorry about the poor connection. I was asking you to reflect even more deeply on his contribution to AmaZulu culture, particularly with that opera that he helped create, which of course was based on the works, the poetry, I understand, of the mother of Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
To write an opera, and it said that it was the first African opera, and really immortalized the music and the artistry of Princess Makoko, that in Zulu. We are very happy about that. He also wrote or converted African poetry by the late Dr. B.W. Mzilikazi, who taught at Vets. He wrote a poem on Mangfitwa Gufa, when my hour of death comes, and the Bell of 1,000 Hills, and he wrote music out of that poetry, which is classic because you could understand the meaning, the hidden inner semantics of the poetry, and turned it into music, using the choicest words and rhythm, absolutely unmatched. We know that especially schools, African schools, for a long time, made a lot of falling out with choirs. There used to be choral music competition. It was part of that. And that was very, very useful to our culture and to our way of doing things. We always remember him for his contribution as far as that is concerned. Being a guy also who was interested or who taught language, he was a person, a character, a scholar, a standalone contributor to the aspect of Zulu language, which is tonology. And we know that our language is known as a tonal language. But I must point out that it wasn't always easy in those days, because he taught, for instance, at the University of Wits, where Dr. P.W. Villiers had been, and had worked with Sam Doak and combining a dictionary and other things, but he was never given a professorship. And Professor C.L.S. later on, although he moved to Fort, I did work at Wits. It was difficult. You did not have to be a hard worker or to be specialized or have a depth of knowledge to be recognized. It looked like something else needed to be done for you to go up. During those days, of course, he and counting out myself and other people who were Zulu in his, I don't know what it's called, not all of us are scholars, but the pursuit that we found that we were taught Zulu in English. And even though we were taught in English, people who studied Zulu or cherished something which was Zulu were not properly schooled, not being properly or classically students.
Professor Nxumalo, I'm so sorry that the line is fading a little bit, but, thank you for reminding us that he died at the age of 89, so he lived through some of the worst of the apartheid years, or all of the worst apartheid years, I would imagine, and that not only was he a man of extraordinary talent, but he had to overcome so much racism during his time as well. Bongani Tembe, I just want to bring you back into the conversation here, because as the artistic director of the KwaZulu-Natal and Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra, how does his legacy resonate in the music you make today?
Yes, first, Sally, I am very fortunate that I sang a significant amount of Professor Mzilikazi Khumalo's work. I remember as a young soloist in 1981 doing Ushaka Kasenza Ngakona, which is a work based on the life of King Shaka. And then in 2002, premiere singing that first Zulu opera, Princess Makoko, at the Playhouse in Durban. So really, his music was loved by the entire choral community. He was respected by the whole community, and his music was rooted in Zulu culture. It was really a wonder and a treasure to experience it both on stage and to also interact with him. And I'm delighted that the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestra performed his work many, many times whilst he was alive and in the audience.
Talk to us about what he was like to work with. I mean, clearly a man of exceptional talent, just oozing out of every pore. But what was it like to work with him? Was he difficult? Was he an artistic temperament? Or was he a quiet presence? Tell us a little bit more about the man himself.
Well, he was always a serious guy. And I said he was rooted in Zulu culture. And his father and mother were ordained ministers in the Salvation Army, which means that influenced him a lot. So he straddled both the kind of Christian tradition as well as the traditional one. I remember with Princess Makoko, we had to postpone it twice because the music was not getting finished. And he said, no, I'm still waiting for the ancestors to influence me and inspire me. And I was getting worried, saying, oh, but the premiere is in a month's time, Professor. And so he was a person that was really, really deeply rooted in both the traditional as well as the Christian traditions.
Yeah, so musical talent and also a strong spiritual backbone to everything that he created. One last comment from you on the fact that he was integral to creating the national anthem that we have today, that he worked with the team that was having to amalgamate two very different national anthems, Nkosi Sikelel and Distem. Now, that is a tough task for anyone, but tell us a little bit more about that if you can.
Yes, that was indeed a tough task, which he did very well in association with two other composers and musicians, and a professor from Wits as well. And the music was there for starters, and both music was there, so they really did not compose the music, but they amalgamated 3 anthems, as you know, and about 4 or 5 languages. And you can imagine to come to that compromise and to really put together what is really one of the most beautiful anthems in the world was quite an achievement.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you so much for your time this evening. That was Bongani Tembe, CEO of the Johannesburg and KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic Orchestras. He's actually the artistic director. Also, thank you very much to author, poet and biographer Professor Otty Nxumalo, who joined us a little earlier on a slightly difficult telephone line, but wonderful memories from both of you. Thank you so much.